Hey everybody, Patrick Murray here with Life in Calgary, Alberta. If you're new to this channel, then you're in the right place if you want to learn how to eat, sleep, drink, play, etc., in Calgary, Alberta. And at the same time, if you want to learn the truth about the upcoming housing crash in Calgary, Alberta in 2023, then you are in the right place. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button and click that little bell so you get notified every time I release a new video. Now, I got to tell you, I get texts, phone calls, emails from people relocating and moving here all the time, and I absolutely love it. My information is below, so make sure if you want to reach out, I'm here to help out. So without further ado, let's get into things. Let's talk about the truth about the upcoming housing crash in Calgary, Alberta in 2023. All right, guys, bear with me. I'm going to do some screen sharing here, and I'm going to put on my reading glasses, and we're going to get right into things. So I have created a slideshow here for you guys so that we can go through and look at things. And I've also got some notes because I want to make sure you guys have all of the proper information so you understand exactly what's happening in Calgary. All right. So guys, first and foremost, to understand what's happening in the city of Calgary for 2023, we need to understand a little bit of history. We need to understand about 2022 and where things are going from here. So the best way to do that is to look at some data. I'm going to use some slides from the Calgary Real Estate Board's CREB forecast for 2023. This talks about what's happened over the last year. Some very smart people have done some very intense research and where we're going. So let's get into things right now. All right. So first and foremost, let's talk about the Calgary resale market in 2022. First off, we had higher than expected sales that occurred in the first half of 2022, and sales in a detached market slowed and buyers turned to more affordable options in the townhome and apartment sectors. Now, growth of new listings in 2022 was not enough to offset the strong gain in sales, tightening supply levels, especially with lower price product. Now, as a result, annual benchmark prices rose 12%. Now, before we go any further, I want to quickly talk about what is benchmark pricing. So benchmark pricing is a far more stable way of predicting price and talking about pricing in a city. So for example, if we look at median or average sales, that can be skewed greatly. So for example, if there were several high-end luxury sales in a particular month, that could throw off all the data for the community and really skew things. So we don't want to do that. So benchmark pricing talks about what a regular 3-bedroom house would sell for that's 2 stories within the community. So now let's talk about the data that we're seeing here in the slide. So first off, we see that year over year, sales were up in our city 7% to 29,672. So that's the number of sales. Now, I got to tell you, if we have a year where we're over 25,000 sales, that's a great year in our city. 29,000, almost 30,000 sales is extraordinary. Now let's talk about new listings. That was up 3% year over year last year to almost 39,000, but our inventory is down 21% year over year with just 4,159 units. Now that's houses, detached house, so detached houses, semi-detached houses, townhomes and apartments currently for sale. And the month supply, which is how long it would take us to sell out of properties, is down 27% year over year, which is 1.68 months supply. And our benchmark price, well, look out, it's up 12% year over year. So that, again, that incorporates all product types to $529,333. Now let's keep going here, guys. So we're going to delve in a little bit deeper here. We're going to look at each sector of the market in 2022. And before we move on, I just want to talk to you about what we're seeing on here on the map. So Calgary real estate is broken up into 8 sectors in the city. So if we start at the top of the map here, you'll see the North District, and that's 12 o'clock. And then going clockwise, so over, we go northeast, then we go east at 3 o'clock, southeast at 6 o'clock is the south, west is at 9 o'clock, there's the northwest, and right in the middle is city center. And one of the things you're going to notice is the pricing in the city center and west parts of the city is the most expensive in the city for detached homes. Now, let's get into the data here. So there were gains in detached sales, and that's the number of homes sold in the earlier part of the year, but there was a pullback in a number of sales as rising rates occurred in the latter half of 2022. Now, due to tight supply, the end of 22 presented purchasers with a persistent seller's market for lower priced homes and a more balanced market for higher priced homes. Now, overall price adjustments later in the year were enough to offset earlier gains, resulting in annual prices over 14% higher than 2021. All right, guys, let's look at the semi-detached homes. So those of you that aren't used to the language of semi-detached homes, that's like a duplex. So that's two houses that are put together that share one wall, okay? So earlier gains in the number of sales were offset by pullbacks later in the year, resulting in the number of annual sales for this product type to just below last year's record level of sales. That's right, in 2021, we had a record number of sales of semi-detached homes. Now, part of the drop in the number of sales is due to a drop in the number of new listings impacting supply and remained low relative to historical data. And the tight conditions supported an annual benchmark price gain of almost 12% in 2022. So from 2020 to 2021, it went up 7.26%. In 2022, from 2021 to the end of 22, the benchmark price went up almost 12% to $566,075. Okay. So now we're going to quickly talk about row sales. All right. So you're going to notice all the pricing is changing because we're talking about, detached, and then the last one was semi-detached, and now on the map it's showing what the benchmark price is for row housing in each sector of the city. So sales activity in row housing hit a record new high in 2022 as buyers shifted their focus to more affordable product types. Now, new listing growth early in the year support higher sales activity, but pullbacks in new listings occurred later in the year, causing inventory levels to drop to some of the lowest levels in a decade. That's how hot this row housing market was. Now, the tight market conditions supported an annual price gain of nearly 15% from 2021, and there it is, 14.81% in 2022, going from $309,000 to roughly $355,000. And if we look at apartment sales, there's been an oversupply of this product type for several years. Now, I tell you, there was a time a couple years ago where if you received an apartment listing, you're like, oh man, I don't know if I want this listing, because they were hard to sell. There's so much competition. We had such an oversupply, and we had like 10 months supply of product. So that's a lot. But there's been a change. So in 2022, sales activity in every month of the year was greater than the same month of the previous year, supporting a new record high year for sales in the apartment sector in our city. Now, higher demand for this lower price product type, along with high rental rates, increased condominium ownership and investment. Now, new listings throughout the year fueled continued growth throughout 2022, and inventory levels and month supply of listings has also tightened as 2022 continued, and this caused the benchmark price to rise nearly 9% from 2021. There it is, last year, $250,000, this year, almost $272,000 for a benchmark price for apartment condos. So guys, that's where we were at in 2022. That's what happened. But what we want to know, okay, well, where are we going in 2023? So now I'm going to talk about 2023, what's affecting the market, and what the research says done by the Calgary Real Estate Board as to where we're headed. All right. So first off, there's a few considerations we need to talk about. Number one is there's higher lending rates, and these are expected to have an impact on our market. Migration is expected to offset the impact of higher lending rates, keeping sales strong, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Employment, recent job growth is expected to prevent more significant adjustments in sales activity and supply. Low inventory levels are expected to prevent widespread price declines in the city. So let's quickly talk about lending rates and inflation. Now, inflation is expected to ease in 2023, preventing any significant rate hikes, any further significant rate hikes. So that doesn't mean there won't be another rate hike. There could be another bump, but it would be a small one we would expect. But hopefully no more. Currently, the Bank of Canada is saying no, and we won't see rates decline in 2023, however, and that's to be expected. But it is possible to see a narrowing of the spread of the mortgage lending rates before the end of 2023. And we do expect the Bank of Canada to lower the overnight target rates in 2024. Let's do a coast-to-coast comparison here. So pre-pandemic, Alberta's economy was really struggling, and as a result, price gains were not as great in other major cities in Canada. Now, we had some really tough years here. It seemed like other major centers in Canada were doing so much better economically, and Alberta was having such a difficult time getting traction. It seemed like we get traction and something would happen, and we would lose the momentum and we'd fall backwards again. Just to demonstrate this, if we look at the 2019 at the prices in Calgary and Edmonton, if you look here on the map, you'll see that they were lower in 2019 than they were in 2014. And Alberta entered the pandemic with a market that favored the buyer. And what that means is we had much more supply than we had buyers. So it was a buyer's market, not a seller's market. Now, other major centers did not have this same economic challenges as Alberta has had entering into the pandemic, and they had tight supply levels with ever increasing prices. So they had much more of a seller's market in their markets. Now, Calgary's prices only recovered in 2021 and 2022, but price growth was half of that was seen in the other major centers because it took that long for us to catch up. Now, rate hikes have had an impact on those other major markets, and they're causing forecasters to predict major price declines in Canada. Now, Calgary and Edmonton have not experienced the same levels of gains as in other markets. So higher commodity prices, higher migration, and relative affordability have lessened the impact on Alberta. Now, when I say relative affordability, let's look at the 2022 benchmark price in Toronto of $1.2 million. Now, picture moving to Calgary and you're going to a benchmark price of $516,000. That's what we mean by relative affordability. If you're moving from a small town in Saskatchewan to Calgary, you're not going to feel like it's relative affordability. You're going to feel that it's a fair jump. Now, our market continues to weather the storm better than other major cities and even provinces. So let's look at population and migration. And this is pretty exciting stuff. Alberta saw a surge of international and interprovincial migration in 2022, contributing to tighter rental markets and home ownership demand. Now, let's take a look at the map here. We'll look at Ontario. We had 18,000 people migrate to Alberta, 1,200 from Quebec, 6,800 from BC. International migration was over 70,000 people coming to Alberta. That's exciting stuff. Now, continued economic growth and relative affordability is expected to continue to support elevated migration in 2023. These high migration levels are expected to offset the impact of higher lending rates and support a housing market that is stronger than pre-COVID levels. Now, a lot of this interprovincial migration has to do with the fact that we've got some growing markets in terms of employment and professionals' positions here in Alberta, but also the affordability, okay? So now let's quickly look at the employment update. So Calgary has seen the largest gain in employment growth in the province due to gains in professional, scientific, and technical jobs in 2022. In 2023, it's predicted that Calgary will see a modest continued job growth at 1%. Now, it's interesting because I just read an article this morning talking about what's going on in Canada and how, yes, the housing market has cooled in Toronto and Vancouver. However, the employment stats didn't get the message that that's happening because employment is up in Canada. And that's kind of exciting because that means jobs are being created, which means people are making money. So what's going to happen? I don't know if the Bank of Canada likes that. I kind of think the Bank of Canada wants to slow everything down, but that's not happening. We're seeing jobs increase, not just in Alberta, but in Canada. So this 1% prediction, I find the Calgary Real Estate Board is fairly conservative in their predictions. I don't know. I think we're going to see more job growth in Alberta than 1%. So what's going on? Well, let's take a look here. Alberta is not expected to go into a recession. And in fact, now they are saying that Canada may avoid a recession altogether, where before they were saying Canada was quite possibly going to go into a recession. Now, recession is when the gross domestic product contracts, so is in negative territory, more at least 2 or more quarters in a year, so back to back. So for example, in the last 6 months, if it had contracted both of those quarters, that would be considered a recession. That's not the case in Alberta, and so far it's not the case in Canada, although it was predicted to be so. Sorry, guys. All right, let's talk about these economic indicators. Lots of numbers here, so let's get through this quickly. So Alberta's gross domestic product and Calgary's gross domestic product, that's a tough one for me today, are both expected to grow in 2023. Employment will continue to improve and unemployment will continue a downward trend. Our population in Calgary is expected to continue to grow by roughly 25,000 new residents, and these people need somewhere to live. Now, housing starts will continue to be positive, but will be reduced. Now, housing starts are new builds, so there's going to be some new build properties, but they're going to be less than before. That's a supply issue, so that means less supply. The Bank of Canada target rate is expected to sit at about 4.25%, and energy prices are expected to continue to be strong. Now, Alberta tends to do well when there's strife in the world, and a lot of that has to do with oil. If we look at the war in Ukraine, and what's happening with Russia, and Russia is a major producer, well, people aren't happy with Russia naturally right now, and so that's not happening, and so that's affecting the price of oil in the world. And of course, we're reaping some benefits here in Canada and in Alberta, but Alberta is a driver for Canada. So when is this war going to end? Well, I don't see any end to it in sight right now. So I think this is going to continue for a little while. So let's talk about the MLS, or the resale market, okay? So multiple listing service resale market. The resale market in 2023 is expected to be strong, with almost 26,000 transactions predicted, contracting marginally from 2022's strong performance. Those are still outstanding numbers. Now, overall, prices are expected to be down slightly from 2022, while the number of detached and semi-detached sales, along with the sale prices, are predicted to be marginally lower. The market will continue to be buoyed by sales in the row and apartment sectors, with growth in both the number of sales and price growth. So guys, now we need to look at the take-home message here. Well, we expect to see divergent trends in the market based on property type and price range. I think we've established that. Year-over-year adjustments in 2023 will be far higher than changes expected over the second half of 2023, thanks to record high sales achieved in 2022. And while home prices are expected to remain relatively stable in 2023, buyers and sellers are likely to experience different price movements based on price type, price range, and location. And again, I think we've established that. So one more chart here for you guys. This is for those that prefer a visual representation of what's going on. So the bar graph represents the number of sales each year since 2014 and the predicted number of sales in 2023. So on the far left, we've got 2014 and 2015, so on and so forth, up to 2022 and in 2023. And then the red line in the graph represents price And again, it is expected that prices will remain relatively flat. So this talks about price growth. So the red line, that is measured on the far right by the 0%, 5%, 10%, the negative 5%, so on and so forth. And what we're seeing here is, yeah, there was some great growth in 2021, more growth in 2022. They're predicting prices are going to remain relatively flat, maybe contracting a little bit in 2023. Now, again, my take is the Calgary Real Estate Board is fairly conservative in their estimates. So is that going to happen? I don't know. Let me just pop out of here. We're going to stop this sharing, go back to, you're back to me. All right, guys. So the take-home message that I'm saying here from the data that I've shown you today is we are not going to have a housing crash in 2023. In fact, I think we're going to remain quite stable. We're going to be a real stable city to park your money in real estate in 2023. In fact, what I'm seeing is with the tight market conditions, if the rates start to go down in 2024, I think there's a real possibility that we could see prices increase more. And so it's probably a good time to get in sooner than later. So, but the nice thing is we are relatively much more affordable than the rest of Canada. So there are some bright spots there. So rest assured, Alberta's in good shape with this real estate market right now. Guys, all I need to know what you're looking for is a little bit about you. So if you need to reach out to me with an email, text, or phone call, just tell me what you're looking for. You know, are you an inner city dweller? Do you prefer the suburbs? Do you like to get out to the mountains often? That sort of thing. Those are things that help me so I can help put you in a great home in Calgary so that you can live your life in Calgary, Alberta.